Good afternoon. Hi everyone. This is Matt Clark from Night IT. Welcome to today's webinar. It's all about our Scalable Business Continuity solution, so more than just backup. For those of you who are on the call who are new to Night IT, we are a technology alliances partner who continuously look to seek out the most innovative and new technologies in the marketplace that we feel would deliver the most value. So today's webinar is going to feature Night IT and our partners Datto. So shortly I'm going to hand over to Steve West and Josh Lambert from Datto. They will explain what Datto provides. We're going to show you some of the technical aspects of the solution without going too in-depth on this call, and also highlight some of the benefits to your business in both reduced downtime and the expense by question. If we can't get around to your question, we will personally respond to your question. If we don't get the time, we'll respond to you after by email or give you a call. So what I'll do now is I'll hand over to Steve and Josh from Datto, and they'll take you through the presentation.
Great, thanks very much, Matt. Okay, so if you guys can use the chat login, if you want to ask a question, feel free. Use that to actually ask questions, raise your hand, and we can get through that. So my name is Steve West. I'm one of the account managers here at Datto. What I'm going to do is walk you through a little bit of the Datto backstory and who we are and what we do, and then we'll actually get into the fun stuff, which is actually looking at the product working. So getting straight into it, we often get the question of who's Datto. We're not a retail name. We've been around since 2007. We're now 600 employees globally. We have 9 offices, including 2 in the UK. That's one in Reading and one in Aberdeen. We're just over 50 staff here in the UK. We've got plans to grow to over 100 here in the UK alone, because we're now looking at the UK as a base for EMEA as well. One of the interesting things about Datto is over 70% of our staff are in support or product development roles. We are a very tech-heavy company, and we focus on the technology. It's very much about the solutions we offer and how we can maintain that consistency. One of the best facts that we love in the soundbite is that we have 185 petabytes of data under management, and we protect everyone from Fortune 500 down to SMBs. To give you a snapshot, we have more data under management than Facebook. The other thing, because we have such a heavy focus on technology, we are continually innovating. We made 5 major product announcements in 2015. We have 5 more planned for this year, and the first one has already been out the door, which is Datto Drive, which I'll speak about in a minute. One of the things when we're talking to customers is we need to change the concept. Most of our customers start out looking for a backup solution. I'd argue that this is a backup solution. The LTO, the tape drives that a lot of companies still use, where it's file-based, effectively this is what they are still continuing to use. The technology has got a bit faster, a little bit more reliable, but ultimately it's exactly the same type of technology that they're still using. I know when I was growing up, I had one of these in the house. People don't have these in their houses anymore. The tape-based backup is the same as the file-based backup. It really is a legacy solution that customers can no longer rely on. So when you're talking about backup and disaster recovery, and the words we like to use, which is business continuity, it's important to look at what are you trying to protect yourself against. And the common scenarios of the fire, the flood, the tornado, the weather, the natural disasters, they are real risks, but in the global scheme of things, they're actually phenomenally rare that they would impact an organization. The number one risk to your organization is your users. The problem that we see is that almost 60% of downtime is caused by human error or human intervention. It's not the natural disasters that cause businesses to lose power, lose data, lose time, productivity. It's the employees or the cause of somebody else. We're seeing more and more people look at backup and business continuity with a security focus. The benefit there is that everybody has employees. You can put some of the best firewalls, defenses, security in place, but ultimately your employees are the one that will most likely cause you to lose productivity or to lose production time. We're seeing more and more of these targeted attacks, the spear phishing type attacks. So this is one actually to a Datto employee. it's a fake link trying to share a Dropbox account. Some UK-related ones there. We've got a lovely reference from HM Revenue and Customs. Now, if this went to one of your employees, are you absolutely positive that they would not click on this, and if they did, is your security up to scratch that it would block what happened next? We see all sorts of ones, the phishing attacks from Barclays. Here's an Apple one saying, hey, did you just pay £35 for an app you've never heard of? Click here. Again, there are lots of these. These are the likely causes of downtime. It's not the natural disaster, the fire, flood, mechanical failure. So what we end up seeing is crypto locker. It's becoming more and more relevant for business continuity, that it's not those natural disasters, it's machines becoming infected or productivity being impacted by malware. So if you had ever been crypto locked, or certainly Night IT have seen lots of examples of customers that have been impacted by this. So we need to stop thinking about backup in terms of the natural disasters. The fire, flood, theft are phenomenally rare occurrences. We now need to start thinking about continuity. So what is continuity? It's probably easier to define what it's not. So if you are running a backup system at the moment that is cloud only, direct to cloud, and there's 1,000 variations of that, then your continuity solution is, okay, I've had an impact, so I've had a machine go down, infected for whatever reason. Don't worry, I've got all my data in the cloud. Yes, but I can't email, I can't invoice, I can't work. Don't worry, you haven't lost any data, it's all in the cloud. You are literally still dead in the water. If you're running a legacy-based system, such as tape or copying to USB, you have exactly the same problem. If you do suffer an outage, a critical outage, that's fine, you haven't lost any data, you've got it stored, but you cannot continue to operate. That's what continuity is all about, is being able to effectively maintain your level of production whilst your primary infrastructure has become unavailable. So how do we get continuity? The Datto solution is a hybrid cloud. That gives us the best of both worlds. It gives us the ability to recover servers, solutions, and infrastructure both on-premise and via the cloud. And we'll actually have a look at how that works at the end of this session. So when we talk about continuity, we are an image-based backup solution. So Josh will show you when we come to the technical part of this. The way that we work is we actually take full system state snapshots. So unlike if you've got a tape-based system, what they're doing is they are backing up a new copy of every file every time that file changes. So when you do have an outage, great, you've got the latest version of that file, but you cannot use it, you can't keep working from just that file. The benefit of what we do is we take a full system state snapshot. What that allows us to do is recover any server and have that server booted in under 7 seconds. And I love it when people think you can't do that, that's not possible. We'll show you at the end of this demo that it is possible. With a Datto solution, you can do that yourself. What that does is it eliminates downtime. Downtime is the #1 risk to a business where you've got employees, you've got infrastructure, you've got all of these fixed operating costs. But if the employee can't do what they're paid to do, you are losing money left, front, and center. So how does the Datto solution actually work? In your typical customer environment, you would have production servers, production infrastructure, be they virtual or physical. Datto can protect any instance of Windows from Windows 2000 upwards, and any modern 64-bit Linux-based flavor. So whether that server is physical, VMware, Hyper-V, Zen, makes no difference to us whatsoever. We can protect any instance of Windows, be it physical or virtual. The business is running normally, everything's going fine. Something happens. That physical or virtual infrastructure, your normal compute, fails for some reason. You don't know what it is, you can't identify it straight away. So your service provider or your internal IT staff would make the call. The machine itself is not coming back up. We don't know what's wrong. We don't have time to investigate. Let's initiate our business continuity plan. On the Datto device itself, running at your business, you can spin up an exact copy of multiple servers, so having lost no more than 5 minutes worth of production, and you can have all of those servers back up and running locally within seconds. So you can continue to operate whilst your IT staff or your external provider like Night IT then looks to repair, replace. It might take days or even weeks. If the hardware is infected or if there's been a hardware failure, Dell, HP could take 2-3 days to ship you a new part, resource it. You can still operate at full functionality in the meantime. If, and it's a more unlikely scenario, you lose your entire site. Again, it's not the natural disasters. We typically see the helpful checks from BT when they decide to relay some cables or some pipes. If you lose internet connectivity to your building, that is a major source of outage. Same with power. We had a number of customers impacted by the Hatton Gardens outage, where initially they didn't realize the length or the severity of the power outage, but within 1 hour of being notified, we had every single customer that was impacted by the Hatton Gardens outage. We had every single customer back up and running. The way that we do this is the Datto solution has two parts. Not only are we protecting and storing those snapshots taken every 5 minutes on your site, we are then continuously replicating them into the UK cloud, so that should you have a full site failure, we can spin up every single one of your servers in the Datto cloud, give them a public IP address with whatever firewall networking requirements you have, and give your staff remote access to those. So if your building becomes dark, becomes unavailable, your staff could log in from a secondary site, from a Starbucks, from wherever they still have internet access. They can continue to access those critical servers, email, whatever that line of business application is, and they can continue to run. When we're looking at planning for a business continuity solution, it's important to look at two concepts. The first is the RPO, or recovery point objective, and the second is a recovery time objective. So at the end of this session, if you have a look, there's actually a calculator on Night IT's website that will actually give you some examples of how often are you currently backing up, and when you do have an incident or an outage, how long will it take you to recover? And it'll put some real financial metrics around those. You can put your own numbers in, whatever you feel is appropriate to your industry or your business, but what it will do is it'll give you an idea of, if you did have a critical infrastructure failure, how much would that cost you? And if your current solution is tape-based, the idea is that you can basically get them up and running with a Datto solution. If you have tape-based, you haven't lost any data, but you are still dead in the water. One other thing I'd like to mention is, one thing that Datto has recently announced is a full cloud-to-cloud solution. We're seeing more and more businesses adopt a SaaS, or software as a service type solution. The most common ones we see out there are Google Apps, Office 365, and Salesforce. If you are a Google Apps, Salesforce, or Office 365 user, they are fantastic services, and their uptime is usually second to none. The benefit of having an external backup solution for that is not to prevent downtime, because those services usually have 5, 6, 7 nines worth of uptime. If you delete an email in Office 365, you usually have 30 days to recover it, or it is gone forever. If you have an employee that leaves and you're on Office 365 or Google Apps or Salesforce, you either pay them to keep the account open, or if you close the account, you could potentially lose all of that data that employee had ever sent or created. So if in 6, 12, 18 months' time, the customer comes back to you and says, the guy who no longer works for you promised me X, Y, Z, unless you had maybe an offline backup, which would take you a long time to search through, it would be difficult for you to prove that. The benefit with Datto Backupify is you can instantly find any email from Google Apps or Office 365 or any record from Salesforce and instantly restore it. And they are persistent. So whenever an email or an account or an opportunity gets created in Salesforce, they are copied into the Backupify account. They stay there forever for you to recover back at any point in time. It's a very cost-efficient solution. It's not an expensive solution to put in place, and it gives you that full redundancy that you can access any email, any calendar, any contact item any of your employees have ever created, and be able to instantly restore them without relying on the hard-fixed 30-day recovery provided by the solution provider. To give you an idea, if you did try and look to recover data or corrupted data within Salesforce, and it quite clearly states it on the Salesforce website, their minimum charge for data recovery is £10,000. I kid you not, it is right there on the Salesforce website. So if you did have an upload of leads or opportunities or contacts within Salesforce that went wrong, your ability to restore that is at Salesforce's whim, and it is expensive. The Datto solution is an awful lot less, and it is a much easier part to recover from. So, enough PowerPoint. What I'd like to do now is I'll hand over to Josh Lambert, my sales engineer, who will now take over and show you the product actually working. So just 1 second, and I will give Josh full access. Hello, Josh, are you there? Can you take over?
I can indeed. Thank you very much, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. So, Steve's gone through all of the nitty-gritty details and the things that we can do. And now, I get to show you the fun stuff. So right in front of you, what you're seeing is the web overview for our flagship device, which we call a Cirrus. And what I've got on this Cirrus, I've got a couple of different agents. And an agent is just a machine you're backing up. And they can come in all shapes, manner, and sizes, just like any one of our Datto devices. So your Datto device has backups coming across to it from all of the different machines that you're backing up. And ultimately, it stores them on itself for a little while. So you have a local retention, but it can also push it off to the cloud. And some very interesting ways we can store data in the cloud as well. So the device is phone home. So we've got a check in here. And here we can see one of my agents is sending data off site as well. And compatibility-wise, for those that are wondering, we support a huge range of devices that are out in the field right now. We actually support everything from Windows 2000 all the way to the latest and greatest. So your 2012 R2s, your SBS, whatever you might have, there is an incredible likelihood that we'll support it. We even include Linux, and we're adding Macs later this year as well. So here's a typical scenario for you. Let's say one of my machines has gone down, and it was my Exchange. So Exchange is your mail server. Now all I'd need to do is go into Restore. So there's a Restore tab across the top. This is how you access everything from this web interface. I choose the machine. And on a Cirrus, you have the ability to run a local virtualization of that machine. So I'll choose local virt, and it gives me a drop-down. And you can take a backup down to just every 5 minutes. So the worst case scenario, if you had a Datto backing up your device, it could just be 5 minutes worth of loss of data. So I'll choose my 3 o'clock point since I'm doing half-hourly backups, and I'll hit Start Virtualization. And I hinted at it a little bit earlier, but all of our devices come in different shapes and sizes, so they have different amounts, varying amounts of performance. So I've got a bit of idle resource here in the top right, which I can customize here on the left, but ultimately, since I've gone into DR, I'll want to run this VM as quickly as possible. I'll hit Start VM. So it's going to take about 6 seconds roughly. We'll see the status has changed to VM mounted. In another couple of seconds, it'll change to say VM running. And what's happening here is it's taking that backup, it's putting it onto the Datto box, and it's saying, okay, you need to run this as a VM. So it's saying, okay, let's run it. I'll be able to connect in now. So on the Datto box, it's running the VM. It's going to pick up the IP address, and what's going to happen is that your end user is going to know no different. They're just going to have a momentary lapse as we jump across, and then they're going to continue to operate. Now, that obviously didn't take very long at all, which is perfect, particularly if you've had your failure happen, for instance, midday on a Monday, because that's really when you can't suffer any downtime. You lose so much productivity then. But even in an ideal world, you're not going to have brand new hardware delivered to your door the following day. So what you can do is you can continually run on this. And the process is almost identical when you run in the cloud as well. But you run on this temporary VM, so this temporary virtual copy of your system that we're running from your backups. And then when you're ready, because this is continually backed up, what we can do is take a backup of the temporary, and then we'll get rid of it. And then you get 2 options for whole system recovery. There'll be some of you out there that are running on something that we define as bare metal. So you have a laptop and it runs one specific function. It's just Windows 7. That's all it does, for instance. That is running on bare metal. There's also the ability to run virtual, where you run multiple operating systems on one machine. So Datto, completely agnostic. I can take a machine and I could turn it back to bare metal. So maybe you were running on a Dell server beforehand, you're moving to an HP. Again, we're completely indifferent. Or perhaps you've had a disaster and as part of a bigger part of that project, you'd like to go virtual. Well, you can do P2Vs. You simply export an image, and you can export as a VMDK or a VHD. Again, completely agnostic. You jump to and fro between them. Makes your life much easier when it comes to failing back, which is typically where you have issues. That means when you're ready to fail back to production hardware, you can at the click of a button. Now, Steve did say about it, but the top issue is just generally deleting files. And there's two functions here that we can use. We've got the typical file restore. So I can do a file restore here. I get that same drop down, so I can choose a historic point. So let's choose a point from Monday this week and hit start file restore. I can mount it up. And what this is going to do, this is going to give me two methodologies to get at my files. One is it's going to basically give me a shared folder, a shared out folder of that frozen point in time, but also a web share. So I can browse this entirely from my browser. I can open up my C drive, I can click through all the different files and folders, and hey, if this was the file I wanted, you just click on its name and it lets you download it. Now, that's great if you know what the file is, which is always a bit of a dilemma I tend to find, because you might not remember what it was. It might have been from a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even you've had a large backup and Knight's turned around and said, oh, you've had a large backup, do you want me to have a look in? Here's what we can do. We can go into Advanced, and we have a tool called Backup Insights. What it does is it's very straightforward, but it's incredibly useful. What you can do is you can choose an agent, and you can choose two different recovery points. And if you haven't guessed it already, this is a backup comparison tool. So I've got my most recent backup here. So I can choose one again, perhaps from, I don't know, the Monday before last. And I hit Start Comparison. What's going to happen is it's going to look at all the files and folders from both points. It's going to compare them for me, and I'm going to present it to them side by side. And the legend is very, very straightforward. It is, and I'll let this load now, a pencil for any edits, a cross for any deletions, a plus for any new files, and if there's a file that's in one point but not in another, it will show it via a shadow. So if I expand this out, I'm actually able to scroll through and see, oh, there's been some edited files, a file that's been deleted, new file. So if someone has lost a file, this is going to be the ultimate tool for you. You're going to be able to find that file. Hey, maybe you've had a large backup, or you don't know what happened to XYZ project. You're going to be able to completely compare them here, determine what you're after, and if you need to, well, you can just click to download a file just like that from the very same interface. No need to jump around. So let me close this up. And I'll run you through a couple of other things I really, really like. Now, one of the things that I get is, oh, okay, so if I'm running a virtual copy of my system, how can I be sure that's going to run when I need it to? I used to get an email saying my backups were successful. Now we can do that. But in the 21st century, people need more. They need a bit more trust in something that is quite so business critical. If I go to the Protect tab here, what I can show you is in Manage Recovery Points, for instance, at this machine, I get a play-by-play of all my backups. And you'll also notice in the middle, obviously I've got the amount of data that's going by, but I've also got this screenshot verification. So on a fully automated process, what we'll have is we'll have your backups run as a disconnected VM, so disconnected virtual copy, fully sandboxed. We'll actually let it run up. We'll wait for it to hit the login screen, screenshot that login screen, and it's even deliverable in maybe a weekly alert, monthly alert, daily even, just to prove to you that your backups are good to go if you need them, which is actually incredibly useful if you've ever faced any downtime. Just nice to know it's good to go. And you can run them as frequently as you like. What I tend to find is popular is to actually run a screenshot verification for every backup you send off-site. Because if you ever then have to rely on using one of your backups from off-site to virtualize, not going to be a problem. You know that that's going to work when you ask it to. So another feature I'll go through just quickly is, what about getting this data off-site? So we've hinted you can do it. You know that it's going to come across the internet somehow, but maybe your internet line isn't that great. Maybe you've got a lot of data. 500 gig, if you've ever tried to download something or even put a video on YouTube, you might know that can take quite a while. And if it's your business data, you don't want to have doesn't make sense. You're paying for no service. So what Night IT do is they actually bundle in a service that we call round trip. So it's all presented to you nice and clear. But what will happen is once you've taken that first backup, there's actually an ancillary device attached to the data. It's just a USB hard drive typically, but all that it means is that we will copy whatever data has been backed up onto the data device onto this USB hard drive. It's encrypted. Then Night IT handle that coming back to ourselves. We upload that into the Datto cloud, which is UK only. And then all your device ever has to send off-site is the itty-bitty changes that have happened since that first backup, which immensely reduces the load on your internet connection and means that you can go day by day without knowing that it's really having to upload any data. It's not going to affect your internet connectivity whatsoever. Now, finally, relatively new feature, something called OwnCloud. Now, OwnCloud is, if you've ever used a file synchronization tool, perhaps you've heard of Dropbox or OneDrive or something like that, it's a tool that's not too dissimilar. What it lets you do is, let me try a different one. Actually sync files up to and down from whatever you need. So I've got a few different files in here. I've got a PowerPoint. You can see versions of it. So you could actually have files on your phone, send them to your PC. Or perhaps, and I've known this has happened to a couple of people, even in our office, they've left their laptop at home. And typically that would be awful. You'd have to go back to your home and get it, something like that. Not a problem. Not a problem, because you've been synchronizing all your files to this ubiquitous storage space, which is actually all held on your Datto appliance. So what we did is we gave them a guest laptop, a laptop that normally goes out in the field. They load up their own cloud instance from the Datto, and that's it. They can download all of their files. They can keep working just the way they would normally at home, all at the click of a button. And there is apps for absolutely everything. Windows, Linux, Mac, and it's also great in case you have a couple of pictures on there. So here's a great one for you. We did a Bring Your Dog to Work day. And here's a picture of my dog. There's Datto going on there. So it's nice to know that it's quite easy to send files to and fro, share them out, all from one interface on one device. Now what I'll do is I'll hand it back to Steve. He might even think of something else that you guys specifically want to see. But I hope that gives you a really good taste of what we can do, how we can help your business, and hopefully Night IT will be able to help you get to the point that you're after. Thanks.
Great, thanks a lot, Josh. So it's Matt from Night IT here. Have got a couple of questions that came through to us pre-webinar. A couple of people were watching the recording and the email. So question first for Steve. So if for instance, you did have to spin completely up, you're completely running in the Datto cloud and you're struggling to get your infrastructure up and running again for whatever reason, how long can I run in the Datto cloud?
Yeah, okay, we get this question quite a lot. Typically, we will provide 30 days of full cloud compute for no charge. That's all included in the monthly service. So in the US, we've actually had customers running with things like Hurricane Katrina. We've had them running for multiple months because rather than just replacing infrastructure, they've had entire buildings gone. So by default, it's 30 days, and longer, if need be, is not a problem for us at all. So 30 days is the default.
Equipment can sometimes fail. What happens in regard to a failure of your actual data drive?
Okay, we have multiple levels of redundancy within the device. So the drives are all in a RAID array. We use WD RE4, so basically the most enterprise-grade quality disks we can find. But they have moving parts. Things still fail. The device itself is covered under a 36-month full replacement warranty, and we will replace that unit at no cost should anything happen to it. Typically, we just replace drives and arrays if they do start showing signs of wobbling, but we'll replace the drive, replace the entire unit at our cost at any point in 36 months. And what we'll actually do is we'll precede that with all of your data before we ship it to site, and we take care of the shipping costs both ways.
Okay. If we just spin your screen up again,
yeah,
Steve.
give me 2 seconds and I'll take back presentation mode.
No problem. While you're doing that, okay, data center security. How secure is your data center if I have highly sensitive information on my infrastructure?
Okay, excellent. We get this question quite a bit. So the data center itself is a tier 1 data center, so it complies with every data center regulation. More than happy to go into if customers got specific requests, but all data is encrypted both at rest and in transit. You can apply additional encryption to all of the images if you require it. That's probably more of a one-on-one question, but we have never ever failed to meet a customer's requirements around security, confidentiality of data, or the level of encryption that we're looking for. So in effect, yes, we can tick every box in that space.
Okay, great. And the final question I'm going to ask, obviously if you have any other questions, I'll cover it off in a minute, but is there a limit to how much data I can run on this solution?
No, basically the devices are sized by the amount of data the customer is looking to protect. The devices themselves can go as big as 60 terabytes in a single unit. Multiple units is quite common. So rather than being one large unit, we often put 2 smaller devices with better IOPS, better performance. But in effect, they're all field upgradable. So no, there are no data size limits. And also they're all sold on an unlimited agent model. So unlike some of our competitors that will charge you additional, if you wanted to spin up a server for a new task or a new role or a functionality, with Datto, you simply include it into the mix. There is no additional charge regardless of how you set up, back up, keep a copy of it forever.
Okay, great. Any other questions? So we'll wrap up now. Thanks a lot for attending. Your IT manager will be in contact with you in due course. In the meantime, if you have any inquiries, you can call us or email us on the address there, but it might be easy just to email your account manager directly. Yeah, and we'll be in touch in due course to continue the discussion about Datto. So thank you very much for attending. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.